First story. After 23 years of NC, my golden child brother, who abused me with our mom's support, contacted me, wanting my forgiveness for making my life a hell so he could move on from the guilt I caused and be a good father to his daughter. My 40th childhood was rough. I am the youngest of 3. I have 2 older brothers, George 45 and Mike 43. Mike and I are close, but George and I had a very strained relationship. George is the golden child. He could never do anything wrong. Mike suffered a bit because of it, but it wasn't like it was for me. I know people will say that he probably should have protected me, but I understand him not doing so. He needed to protect himself as well. I do not blame him at all for this. I would have probably done the same. George would essentially terrorize me all day long, making my life hellish just because I was born. I was a very sick child, so the attention wasn't always on him, which he hated. Our mother didn't want me. She made that very clear. She only had me to try and keep my dad, as she knew he desperately wanted a daughter. I have scars on my arm from George pushing me into a glass door when I was 13, he was 18, and my mother's reaction was to scream at me for getting blood on the carpet before banishing me to my room. Mike helped me bandage it up until I could get it to seam to. I moved out on my 18th birthday. I actually sneaked out in the middle of the night with my bag and moved in with my high school boyfriend, now 41, as we got married the day after I turned 18, and we are still married to this day. Though I do not recommend getting married so young, it was difficult. My mother didn't realize I was gone for 4 days before she called the police to try and get me brought home, as I would often leave the house and stay with my boyfriend and his mother for a couple days before mine would call the police and have me brought home. I wish I had been there to see her face when the police told her that they couldn't remove me from my marital home. My dad was a very weak man. While I know he did love me and care for me, he would often bend to whatever my mother wanted. He worked long hours to provide, and would just agree to whatever she wanted for an easy life. When I left home, the only contact I had with my family was with Mike. Over the years, I have opened up contact with my dad. He was very much kept at arm's length. I only allowed contact when I was in the right headspace to deal with it. I made sure that he understood that if my mother or George ever contacted me or turned up when we met up, then I would go out of contact, and he would never hear from me again. I just completely disappear. I made it very clear to Mike and Dad that I did not want to hear about my mother or George. The only time this request was broken was when my mother died. My dad messaged me to tell me that she had passed, and gave me the details for the funeral if I wanted to attend. I responded with just a good, and did not attend the funeral. Recently, my father has passed as well. I did attend his funeral, and I saw George for the first time in years. At the wake, George approached my husband and me as we were in a corner, quietly talking with Mike. As soon as I noticed him approaching, I moved on to talk to a relative anything, so I didn't have to talk to George. This happened 2-3 more times before he gave up trying to approach me. Though his wife, who had no idea he was married, tried to corner me in the toilets to get me to talk to him, and I rather crudely told her to F off. We left just after this. A week after the funeral, I got an email to my work email. This can be found easily online as our work emails are on the website from George. I did check with Mike that this was George's email, and he confirmed it was and told me that George had said at the wake that he was going to email my work email. I should have deleted it then and there, but I decided to open it. In the email, he told me about how his life had become difficult after I left. He did say that he was proud of the things I had done, and was glad to see that I was still happy with my husband. He talked about his addiction to alcohol and pain medications, how my mother had put all this pressure on him to succeed, and how he realized that he just wasn't good at anything despite being told for years that he was the best and perfect. He had been in therapy for the last 15 or so years, and he had come to the realization that he had been awful to me and hadn't realized he was capable of the things he did. He stated that having his daughter made him open his eyes to how he had been to me, and if anyone had treated her the way he did me, then he would have beaten them up. He was asking me for forgiveness and wanted us to be able to move on. In the email, he said that he is asking for my forgiveness to help in his recovery to become a better husband and dad. I'm not sure I am ready to forgive. I have to live with the literal scars he inflicted. I have trauma from what happened that I don't think will ever go away. I have been seeing a therapist for the last few years. I have spoken with my husband about it, and he has told me that I should just delete it. He doesn't think any good will come from allowing George back into my life. He thinks that George has just chosen to reach out because I'm currently hurting emotionally from the loss of my dad. He did also say that the first time I walked away from George at the wake, George got annoyed and told Mike that I was still acting like the little bee I always was. It's been almost 23 years since I cut contact, and I'm starting to doubt myself. Should I forgive and try to forge a relationship with him? Or is it best to just keep to the no contact policy? TLDR, my brother was terrible to me as a child. I had a rough childhood because of him, and now he wants forgiveness, but I am not sure I am ready. Update. Thank you to everyone who has commented. I know some of you have said that he has likely gotten in touch because he requires something from me, like a kidney. Fortunately, if this were the case, he would be SHT out of luck. I only have one. Admittedly, finding out I had a niece out there did knock me slightly. I've always wished for my children to have cousins, but my husband is an only child, and Mike can't have children and prefers to be childless, though he loves my children. Though, after having spoken with Mike, it sounds like the apple hasn't fallen far from the tree. Mike sees a lot of George's behavior as a kid in her, and he has taken a step back from them because of it. I know some of you will be disappointed, but I did decide to respond to George's email. I had several emails in my inbox from George pressing me for a response. I told him that there is absolutely no way he will ever be getting forgiveness from me, as his email showed me that, as per usual, it was about him. I live with the physical and mental scars he inflicted every day. I told him that not once in his email had he said what exactly he wanted forgiveness for, as he never specified one incident. He didn't want to improve himself. He wanted to make himself look good. We had no contact for 23 years to work on him, and he was no different than the man-child he was at 23. I told him that I do not want any more contact with him, and if he continues to contact me, then I will go to the police for harassment. I told him not to go to Mike to find out things about me, because Mike knows better than to talk to him about me. I finished the email with, in the future, if you are wanting to ask someone for forgiveness, maybe don't call them a little bee in front of their brother and their husband. I have marked his email address as spam. I have also spoken with Mike and reinforced that I do not want to speak to George or have contact with him. Mike mentioned that George had been asking more and more about me since Dad passed, but he has repeatedly told George that he is respecting my decision and will not be talking to him about me or my family. Mike also mentioned that George had been trying to find out what I was getting in the will, and he thinks this is why George is trying to ask for forgiveness in case there is a clause in the will or something. I'm not in the will. I know this because when Dad was making his will after my mother died, I asked him not to include me. I didn't want to have to face George at a will reading, so I asked. Plus, nothing in a will could give me back the one thing that I would rather have my dad. Dad agreed and didn't add me to the will. Mike has always said that he will split everything he receives with me, but I have told him that while that is a nice gesture, I would rather he keep it to himself. Second story. OP's friend thought OP needed a better girlfriend than his current one and decided to drug him, allowing his female friend to abuse him and successfully ruin his 8-year relationship. So, OP got his friend arrested and is now rebuilding his relationship with his girlfriend. My girlfriend Neria and I have been together since we were 14. We started dating in 9th grade and have been together ever since. We live together in a flat and have done so for about a year and a half. I live in a city that has a lot of students, so there is a lot of pretty affordable housing. Last month, Neria and I got into a huge argument over my friend. Josh is a particularly heavy drinker. Josh is the kind of guy who violently vocalizes his opinion, unprovoked, while drunk. I'm not at all unfamiliar with the fact that he thought being in an 8-year relationship at 22 was ridiculous. Josh definitely wasn't the main reason for this argument. He was definitely just the tipping point. We had been having petty arguments about anything and everything. This fight was ugly, and regretfully, I left midway and said nothing but, "I can't handle you anymore," before leaving. This argument happened at around 6 p.m., and by 10 p.m., I was getting drunk with my friends at a club. Josh was obviously there among my other friends, and we just got drunk and talked about how I'm still young and have so much to do. The whole night, I just kept drinking. Neria had texted me a few times and called me too, but I didn't open or answer anything. I ended up getting blacked out, and the next morning I woke up in a bed with a woman I didn't know. I called one of the friends I had been out with the night before, Caleb, to come get me. I asked him to tell me what happened, and, long story short, she came over to us, and I was weak. Our other 2 friends tried to stop me from leaving, but I had already gone when they realized what was happening. I told Caleb to take me home to Neria. He asked if I was sure, but in that moment, I couldn't think of anything else. I just wanted to be home. My phone was dying, but I managed to try to call her a few times before it died. When I got in, she wasn't there, and panic set in very fast. I charged my phone, showered, and just waited. I read her messages from the night before, and they were all apologetic and asking for me to please come home. She has my location, and she texted me, asking who I was with, a little bit after the time Caleb said I had left the club, and that was the last text. I got back to the flat at about 9 a.m., and no matter how many times I called and texted, I was getting no answer. I called her best friend, Lily, and was hung up on. When she came in at around 3 p.m., I broke down immediately and just cried and begged. She didn't cry or anything. She just held me and told me it was fine, and that we're fine. I apologized for the yelling before leaving and explained what happened. She was patient and quiet. I could tell she was hurt, but it was clear she was trying to calm me down first. That was about 4 weeks ago, and we haven't talked about it since at all. Anytime I try to bring it up, she just kisses my cheek and shakes her head a little. We're still sleeping in the same bed, having breakfast together, and doing things together as a couple. I was planning on proposing this year, but I don't know how to talk through this with her. She gets visibly upset when I try to approach it, but I know we can't leave it. A couple nights ago was our first try at being intimate since I cheated, and she broke down in my arms. It was the first time I've seen her explicitly cry over what I did. I held her for a bit, and then ordered us food while she showered and got cleaned up. I made this Reddit account explicitly for us. I want to help her and be better for the sake of us. Please just let me know what I can do to make communication about what's happening easier for both of us. Comments. Aggravating Owl 8.974. You cheated, and then she had to comfort you. Let me ask, how much was Josh pushing you to drink and hook up while you were out? Curious Penguin Socks. Yep, at the very least, OP needs to cut off Josh because he is not a friend at all. I am not saying this will save the relationship, but it might help to establish some trust back. Either GF is making an exit plan or wants OP to step up and make it right without her having to say what to do. She wants him to be thoughtful of her. Although, I hope she is just planning her exit, to be honest. There really isn't any coming back from this. The trust that was broken can never be repaired. Dubsum 2023. You have been having petty fights about anything and everything. You have shy friends. You leave during a fight, saying, I can't handle you anymore. You ignore her after leaving. You get blackout drunk. You cheat. You break down, and she has to calm you down. Wow, I truly hope she's working on her exit strategy. Update. 7 days later. Originally, when I brought it up to her, I brought it up as cheating, but since learning some new information, I've learned that was not the case. I was just wondering how I could bring this up and phrase it. I have been struggling to cope, but admittedly, given the situation that she believes to have happened, I have put her through some struggles too. Update. 24 days later. This post got a lot more traction than I was expecting, and people who know me in real life figured out it was me. This isn't a throwaway account. I don't intend it to be either. I'm still going to post after and lurk, especially after being recommended subreddits that are around my situation. After initially posting, the heat from the comments got to me a little, and when pressed by Neria, I showed her the post. She was upset that so many people thought that her reaction was due to her own cheating, and that many people were and still are making judgments based on limited information. This obviously ended up opening the conversation on why I made the post in the first place. I don't really want to go in depth about the content of the conversation, but we addressed the petty arguments, my friends, and all that was suggested by those who reached out. Thank you. We agreed that therapy is the best option, and that neither of us want distance right now. We're planning to go away to the Lake District for a week, just the two of us. For those who were asking about the gap of time where neither myself nor her friend knew where she was with her brother and his wife. As for Josh, point blankly, many of you who messaged me privately were correct. I was drugged and sawed. The woman was a friend of Josh's. She came forward extremely apologetic and said she didn't know that I had been drugged and thought that I was just super drunk, which is why I wasn't as active, her words. She also continued that I was tipsy, her words, and Josh had booked an Uber back to hers for the both of us. She had messaged me this because a friend of Nay had seen the post and mentioned it to a friend who just so happened to be a mutual friend of this woman, Kate. She sent me proof of messages between her and Josh the day after, which included his attempts at bantering about the situation. Caleb and another one of our friends, Luke, brought the situation up to Josh prior to my learning about it because both were suspicious. They ended up getting him to admit that he wanted to give me a taste of what else is out there. Charges are being pressed, and the police are involved. Prior to this, he had made attempts to reach out and see how I was doing. but all of my time was spent in person with my girlfriend, as he was quite literally the last person I wanted to see. Regardless of knowing, he got me sawed. Explaining the situation again with what I had learned was difficult. We both cried, comforted each other, and cried some more. She broke down and had a panic attack. She felt guilty for being upset, and I reminded her that neither of us knew, and it's a natural reaction. We spent that entire night just talking and talking endlessly, trying to find solutions to ways to communicate better and be more productive and emotionally mature when handling each other in the sense of the arguments and disagreements we had prior to this. Thank you to all the people who gave me the courage to speak to my girlfriend and see the situation in a different light. The morning after, we had calmed down a lot and talked about where we should go from here. My girlfriend was there with me when I went to the police station. I know we aren't going to heal over this overnight, but I am grateful to know this kind of love. I haven't spoken to my friends a great deal, other than Caleb and Luke, but even since filing, I've kept my distance. Some of our mutual friends are mixed on the situation, but their opinions are the least of my concerns. My days are primarily filled with spending the day alone with Nerea or around her family and friends. Thank you for all of the comments and advice I received. I am very grateful. To the people who helped me understand that what happened to me was not consensual, and that men are victims too, I owe you my life. I may update again a couple months down the road, but regardless, I'll still likely be interacting with posts on this account. FAQ. Did you get tested for STIs? Yes, I got tested. I'm clear. Why would you try to have sex with your girlfriend during this? I didn't act first, but I didn't pull away. Many of you were right. She was just trying to do it because she thought if she could get through it, then it wasn't really affecting her. Are you planning on continuing to drink? No, never again. Do you still talk to Josh? Josh and I are in zero contact. Regardless of police advice, it would be that anyway. Have you actually been together for 8 years? Or is that how long you've known each other? Yes, we have actually been in a relationship for 8 years, but we've known each other for 11 years. We met in year 7. We stayed in the same secondary, and then eventually 6th form, leading to where we are now. TLDR. I was drugged by my friend, which led to my SAW, and I misjudged this as cheating. Charges are being pressed, and my relationship is healing slowly. Third story. OP's abusive mom parentified her to babysit her son and used her as an unpaid servant at her house, while not allowing her to get a job or even drive to control her life. Not realizing OP had her exit plan and was ready to abandon her. She finally had it when her mom accused her of having an affair with her sister, so she took her bag and ran away. I am 18 years old. I feel bad saying this, but my mom, 34 years old, often makes me feel like I'm the mother to her 7-year-old son, my brother. I am expected to make him breakfast every day. There isn't a day where she doesn't expect me to feed him. I even cook dinner and lunch. I have to help him with homework, reading, and chores. I want to enjoy life as a young adult, but I can't even do that. Every time I want to go out, she constantly reminds me I have a brother to look after, like he's my son. It's hard because when she isn't home, he doesn't listen to me. He sees me like a maid because that's what he sees from his mom. His mom never corrects his behavior, and yesterday, when my brother hit me and I lectured him about it, she laughed with him about the situation. I'm so tired and want to get out of this house, but part of me feels bad leaving. I feel like I'm leaving a lot for my mom to take care of. Am I in the wrong for wanting to leave, or am I just being too dramatic? I can't even tell if this behavior is normal, because it's been this way since I was 10. I can't even get a job, BTW. She won't allow me. It calls me dramatic and selfish for even wanting one. She's admitted that she doesn't want me growing up or getting more freedom. She also won't allow me to drive. I can't do much because I live in a small town where the farthest stores are 30 minutes away. So I kind of need a car to get a job. I was also going to see family since my grandma paid for the ticket. And my mom basically told me I couldn't go because I'm expected at home to care for my brother over the summer. So I can't even work this summer if I wanted to. Relevant comments. WFWRTR. Leave. Let mom deal with the life she chose. If she tries to say you have a brother to look after, say, no, you have a son to look after. Then walk out. For all Marleys. OP, you are being parentified. That's toxic. If your mom needs help raising him, she can ask his father or his grandparents or hire a babysitter. OP. Unfortunately, we live 2 hours away from them. I hate you 1975. Then you ask dad to get you. And live with him if possible, and explain why. OP. My dad got deported. We have different fathers. Big Nefariousness 937. I had the same issue with my mom and younger siblings. I was basically a parent to them both from age 9, and it didn't stop till I left. I tried bringing it up. I tried saying it was unfair. I even had older siblings who did nothing around the house, no chores or anything. It was all my responsibility. I just get told life is unfair or her parents were stricter with her. And this was just part of being a family. It's not. It's bad parenting and lazy parenting from your mom. And it won't stop. You're making her day-to-day life easier by picking up the slack and doing things she doesn't want to do or knows you'll do. It's totally unfair on you. At 18, you should be exploring the world, hanging out with your friends, and enjoying those last teenage years, while embracing the adult world before you have real consequences to deal with. My best advice is to leave. I don't know if you have other family members you could stay with. Maybe start looking for a job if you don't already have one. Getting away is really your only way out of this. OP. I'm so sorry. Thank you for sharing that. That's kind of how it is in my household. I basically do all my mom's chores as well. I really want to do more, but every time I ask, she tells me I'm selfish for going. Okay, context 1E168. You really don't need to ask. You are a legal adult. If you can move away with a family member and get a job, do that. Don't let her guilt you. It's one thing to help out your family sometimes. It's a whole other thing when they make their kid your responsibility. It's not. Dipping my toes. You are not wrong. But this is not going to change until you move out of that house and take yourself completely out of your mother's control. Unfortunately, your brother is too young for you to simply leave when you feel like it and put him at risk if your mother is not at home. Is there anyone else you can stay with to escape from this servitude? OP. My aunt has been asking me to come with her, and she would pay for college. She knows how my mom is. I just feel guilty leaving her behind, especially since I help with my brother. Southern Mama Llama. Go with your aunt. Please don't feel guilty. You have been indoctrinated to believe that you have to help. You don't. Clearly, your aunt can see what's happening and wants to help. Your mom chose to have a child. You did not. You are not wrong. Your brother, no matter how much you love him and want to help, is not your responsibility. OP. I'll ask her tomorrow. I just haven't asked since she recently had a baby. Last time she called me, she reassured me that having a baby didn't mean she would stop caring. So hopefully she does let me. I just feel horrible leaving my mom. I feel like my duty is only at home. Update. 2 days later. So a bunch of people told me the type of abuse that was parentification, which now does make sense. To people who said to get a job, I can't. I can't drive. My mother would take my phone. I can't explain how bad it can be when she's upset. But it's bad, and I'd rather follow what she says until I leave. So today, I texted my aunt, who has in the past wanted me to go with her. We talked, and she said she would take me in. I agreed to help me pursue a degree in criminal justice, learn to drive, and get a job. She agreed that what my mom was doing was wrong. I graduate next month on May 17, and we both agreed my aunt would come for me on May 25, which is the day I'm leaving. I have no plan on telling my mom. I will pack my stuff silently and leave quietly. I'm trying to find my passport, but my mom has hidden it from me. Hopefully, I will find it. Thank you to everyone's support. Hopefully the plan goes through, and I do end up leaving. Relevant comments. IC Advance 1T108. Get your birth certificate and social security card too. OP. I'll make sure to grab them the day before, in case she notices them missing. Old Ninja 113. Take photos of them, though, in case she decides to hide them. Yeti's Unicorn. After you leave, she will try to guilt trip you into believing that terrible things are now happening because you aren't there to help. There's a very real chance that she will claim a major medical emergency for either herself or your brother. Do not fall for it. These are some textbook emotional manipulation tactics that people like her use to regain control. She's a grown-up who chose to have kids. She doesn't need her 17-year-old daughter to take care of everything for her. She's capable of doing it herself, but just wants to make you do it for her. Reasonable Raccoon. The OP needs a lot of stock phrases on hand to deal with this kind of manipulation. That's a real shame. I hope you sort it out. Goodbye. Etc. OP. I'm planning on cutting her off. I think it's for the better. I easily fall for her manipulation, and sometimes it's hard to do what's best for me. Yeti's Unicorn. I get that. It's hard to break free after living under that for years. Some time spent without contact would probably be the best way to focus on your own well-being. She'll probably try everything she can think of to find you and force you to talk with her. Speak to your aunt about how the two of you can prepare to deal with that in case she tries to get to you through your aunt. And speak to your college administrator to make sure they know the situation and can put safeguards in place to prevent your mom from contacting the school to sabotage your academics. OP. Alright, thank you. Hopefully she doesn't, but I could never know. Hopefully everything goes well, and in a few years, maybe I can reconnect with my mom again. Amen concerto. Freeze your credit. This is one way she can try to mess up your life. Run a credit report as soon as you leave to make sure she hasn't used your SSN for anything. Then freeze it. If she has used it, report it as fraud. You can unfreeze it when you need to. Get an IRS ID PIN for filing taxes, so she can't claim you as a dependent next year. OP. I am aware that she's been using my credit score, which I found a couple months ago. I'm not sure how bad it is yet. Acrobatic? I5D 986. Go to Credit Karma. There's an app. They offer free credit monitoring. It's free itself. There are a lot of tools out there that can be beneficial to you. Good luck. Update me. Second update. So I am officially leaving in 20 days. But these past few days have been hell for me. I know the time is coming, but I can't wait for it to be here already. It's like my mom's getting more controlling as time goes by. My aunt and I have already found a job and called. We agreed that I would sneak my paperwork and leave. I'm having a hard time leaving my younger sister behind since my mom is also hard on her too. My mom has been threatening to take away my phone at 18, and she expects me to come straight from school to clean and work around the house, to the point where she yells if it's not done. I have no time to do homework, and I'm failing a class. Everything else, I have A's and B's. Even if I try doing homework, she accuses me of only being on the phone. Yesterday, she accused my sister and me of being in a secret relationship, which she had before. It's honestly so gross and disgusting. I just want to get out. The other day I wore shorts, and she told me I would get worded. The shorts weren't even that short, and it's summer. I'm constantly controlled, and I can't wear makeup, dress the way I want, work, drive, or do anything. This is so tiring, and I'm tired of my life, and she makes me feel like absolute trash. I feel so bad leaving my sister behind. She's 16. I feel so much guilt for leaving her behind. I can't stop crying because I know I'm leaving, and I know she's going to get grounded once I leave. Relevant comments. Lisa knows best. Make sure you and your sister find a way to keep in contact. Make a plan for her to get out as well. What age is legal where you live? Could she go with you? I hate to say this because it's clear you love your sister, but don't even tell her you're leaving. Your mother may force it out of her. Contact Child Protective Services CPS, or the equivalent where you live, and let them know what your mother is doing. She's sadly going to do the same to you and your sister once you leave. Good luck. I am keeping a countdown for you. Make sure you have everything important to take with you. And if you have to sneak out a couple days ahead and stay with a friend, if you can, so she can't try to stop you. Getting away from an abusive relationship, regardless of who the relationship is with, is a very dangerous time. Stay safe, OP. My Harrison Fire 2023. You're not wrong. And I'm glad you're escaping the hell that you've been forced to live in. I have a suggestion that might help your sister. I agree with everyone saying she needs a way to contact you. But if your mother grounds her and doesn't allow her access to any communication devices, she could literally be dying in that house, and you wouldn't know. If she's in serious danger and needs you to call 911 or whatever exists where you live to enter the house by force, if necessary to do a welfare check, if it comes to that, she needs to be able to communicate that to you without any phone or other communication device your mother can take from her. So devise a way to communicate with her now, so she has the information before you're no longer there to give it to her. If you can't risk telling her you're leaving before you do, when you leave her a message in a place that only she would find telling her how to communicate with you. You could tell her to use any window facing the street, or any window you can view from a safe distance. You can either devise a short numeric code 09 with different hashes meaning different things, but I suspect that may be too quick. But at the very least, she needs to know to put an X in any window she can access if she needs emergent help. She can write it on the glass, tape it to the glass, or in any way she can make a visible X in the window to let you know. Call 911. Good luck. You're very brave. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.